Hello friends and welcome back. This week we'll make some Keema Naan. Keema means minced meat, naan means bread. So it's basically a bread filled with minced meat. And it is so delicious and super easy to make. I could not get enough of this. I made them 3 times in 1 week. And you should definitely give it a go too. And if you'd like to check out some other types of flatbreads, I have a whole playlist which you can find in the link in the top right corner here. But let's get on with the Keema Naan. And as always, you'll find the recipe and the full details down in the description box. So first, let's see what equipment we need. We need a frying pan. Yes, these breads are made in a pan, not in an oven. We need a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe and a rolling pin, and that's it. When it comes to the ingredients, for the dough, you'll need some white flour, some milk, some yogurt, a bit of oil, sugar, salt and yeast. Then for the filling, you'll need some minced meat. I'm using minced beef. Then some minced garlic, minced onion, minced ginger, some herbs. I'm using coriander and some spices. And you can change these ingredients if you want to. You can put whatever you want in your Keema Naan. But I would suggest grating your onions and your garlic and your ginger so they're quite fine. That'll prevent the filling from poking out of the dough. And for seasoning, I'm using salt, pepper, paprika, coriander, and garam masala, and some cumin. For whatever fillings and seasonings you want to use, just mix them all up with the mincemeat and leave it on the side. I'm also making a little dip to go along with the breads. So I've got some yogurt here, some parsley and mint, a little bit of salt. That's it. It goes really well with this bread. Okay, we can start making the dough. So my kitchen is quite warm, 25 degrees C. So I want to use cold milk and cold yogurt, about 9 degrees, 8 degrees or so. Obviously, if your kitchen is cooler, then you can leave the milk to go up to room temperature. So get your milk, add your yeast, add your sugar, give it a quick mix and let the yeast hydrate for a second. And then add the yogurt. And then we can add the oil and the salt. Now give it a good mix again. You want to dissolve the large salt crystals. Trust me, it's easier to do it now than whilst you're kneading the dough. So once you're happy with that, add the flour. That's our last ingredient for the dough. And get your scraper and give it a good mix in the bowl until you don't see any more dry flour. And if the scraper's not doing the job, continue on with your hands. This is quite a dry dough, so it'll take a minute. But once you're happy with that, tip it out on your table. We can start properly kneading it now. So I'm going to use a regular kneading method here. I press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand. Then using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand. Then turn and repeat. This whole process will take no more than 5 to 7 minutes or so. And once your dough is nice and smooth and not sticky anymore, you can get it in a bowl for its bulk fermentation. So just pop it in there and always take the temperature. Around 25 degrees Celsius is just about perfect for this. Now we can cover it up and leave it to ferment for 45 minutes. And after the first 45 minutes of fermentation, we'll punch the dough down. Normally I would fold the dough, but because this dough is quite dry, there's no reason for folding, so we're just going to punch it down to degas it. You don't want too much carbon dioxide in it. And it's as simple as it sounds. Just take your hand and just press it down to press out all the gas. Don't punch it like you hate it, just press it. Then cover it up and leave it to ferment for another 45 minutes. Because it's flat, it doesn't look like it's rising much, but it has risen definitely. And after a total of 1.5 hours of fermentation, we can divide it now. It feels nice and soft and full of air, so release it from the bowl, tip it out on your table, and grab your scales. You could eyeball it, but I would suggest using scales, because then all your breads will be the same size, right? So just weigh your piece of dough and divide it into 4 equal pieces. I always use scales when I'm making more than 2 pieces of bread. It's quite easy to eyeball it when you're making only 2, because you cut the dough in half, right? But if you're making 4, 6, 8, 16, whatever, then you will end up with wonky pieces. Okay, so now we need to shape them into balls. So flatten the dough out, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until we have a nice tight ball. You reach the point where you started, then tighten them against the table. That's it, we cover them up and let them rest for 20 minutes. We'll need to let the gluten relax before we shape them once again. And after 20 minutes, we need to repeat what we did just now. So grab a piece of dough, flatten it out, place it smooth side down on your table, then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle till you reach the point where you started. Then flip them smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, that's it. Then continue on with the other 3. And after you're finished with that, cover them up again and leave them to ferment for another 45 minutes. This is the final fermentation. After this, we'll be shaping them and cooking them. And they have risen really nicely, so we can start working with these. Grab one, place it on your table, get a little bit of flour and a rolling pin. This dough is not too sticky, so you don't need a crazy amount of flour. So starting off with your hands, just press it out so it's nice and flat. And try to make the edges thinner than the middle. And there's no rush, just using your fingertips, flatten it out gently. You can pick it up and stretch it also. And as I said earlier, try to make the edge thinner than the middle. And we don't want to use a rolling pin yet for that same reason, because we want the middle to be thicker than the edges. Now grab the filling and place a quarter of it right into the center of the dough. And then pick the dough up and fold the edges so that they meet over the filling. And that's why you want the edge to be thin, because by the time we have all the edges folded up in the middle, it will become a thick piece of dough. So wrap the mince up, pinch it together properly so there's no holes, and then flatten it out. You gotta be quite gentle at this point, because if you go too rough, the mince could pop out through the dough. I mean, it would not be the end of the world, it's just that the insides will leak out in your pan, so it's not the best scenario. So just start off by gently pushing it down with your hands with a rolling pin, and then roll it. And it doesn't have to be super thin, like ½ centimeter is just right. And don't worry about them not being perfectly round, that doesn't matter, they'll still taste amazing. And if you mess up the first one, you know how it is, you have 3 more to practice on. Now you could roll them and cook them one by one, but I'm gonna roll them all and then cook them, because I obviously have to set up my camera over by the hob. I would actually suggest you rolling them and cooking them one by one. That way they will keep their shape better and pull back together less. But it will work either way. So get your pan on a medium heat, add a generous amount of oil, and let's start cooking our Keema Naans. The total cooking time for these was about 5 to 6 minutes. We don't want them to cook too quickly, because the outside may be brown, but the raw mincemeat inside might be still raw, right? So the best way to go about it is just have your pan on medium heat, have plenty of oil, and flip them every 30 seconds or so. You want a really nice golden brown color on both sides of the bread. If you have a bigger pan, you could cook 2 or 3 at the same time. But I prefer cooking them one by one because the middle of the pan is always hotter than the outside. So just keep cooking, keep flipping them, keep an eye on them. And if you are ever unsure, you can use your temperature probe to check if it's ready. And if it reads more than 90 degrees Celsius, it's done for sure. And that's your Keema Naan, simple as that. It's super delicious, so I really encourage you to try making these. And they are really quick to make as well. It took a little bit over 2 hours, so in bread terms, that's lightning fast. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.